Comes into the final corner. Collins throws it down the inside. A block pass goes through, and he slows down Tremblay enough that Cassis will race to the line as Van Winkle goes off in the background. Torn Collins wins in a breathless super sport race. Young makes the move on the inside, picks up the drive towards the line, and it is too close to go up, though it looks like Garan has come away victorious. What a finish!
Welcome to the Canadian Superbike Podcast.
We've seen some crazy stuff in turn 8 off the back straight there, particularly between Young and Garan, and Jordan is going to have to measure up to that standard.
Tips it in, and Dumas is down. They will have to clean up that oil spill, but it comes too late for Alex Dumas. Zook doesn't look like he has enough, Colin, and Ben Young's going to bring it home for the title. Welcome everyone to Friday at Daytona as we take a picture here for the Instagrams, for the grams. That's what we got to do, Colin. We got to promote the show, get it out there. The pit stop championship has been won by, not sure, who cares? It just happened as we were finishing up here on Friday.
Yeah, they were in the 17-second range, and it was pretty close, but I think the Economy Lube team, the Celtic.
Did they?
Celtic,
all right,
Economy Lube.
Celtic Economy Lube,
Warhorse,
HSBK,
yeah, just
Ducati.
Barely over, I think, the pole winner.
Okay.
Ulrich's team. So, yeah, and I mean, I don't think anyone gets excited. No offense about any of that anymore, because tomorrow it's gonna be shooting with ammunition in the guns, right?
Well, yeah, and I also don't.
Which is suddenly not a great analogy, given that somewhere people are getting shot right now.
I apologize for the wind off the top here on this podcast. It's been a very breezy day, but the podcast audio should still be okay. But yeah, do you think the novelty is just worn off on the pit stop stuff, or is it because we all know that there is the looming challenge of 3 pit stops per team, and if the team that wins this little showcase thing, again, another made-for-TV event, if they end up winning this, and then all of a sudden a bunch of gas spills all over the bike tomorrow in one of the stops, or they can't get the front tire in or out, then who cares what happened here?
And one of the teams over there had a disaster, one of the Ducati teams with the front tire, and a friend of ours was the architect of that disaster.
Oh, okay.
Which is quite shocking, to be honest with you. But there's a number of things. I think, first of all, if you're going to do it, do it.
Yep.
So with leathers, in the pit lane, and for TV and GoPros on people and all that good stuff. And I think at one point that was what they did, but somehow it's just turned into like a club racy thing to do in the evening, and it just doesn't have any oomph. And I don't get the feeling people are taking it that seriously.
Well, I can confirm, as I was sitting in turn 4, my usual spot, and by the way, hung out with some fans of CSBK while I was out there today, who actually live in Canada and are just down here for the winter, and they walked up and they saw the guy who calls the CSBK races on TSN shirtless getting a tan. They were like, must be Daytona. I'm like, yep, very much so. But we had a nice conversation about everything CSBK.
I'm sorry, they found you in the grandstand to determine if this was Daytona?
No, they were like, wow, you're really in Daytona mode, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting in the grandstands, technically on vacation, working vacation, as we like to call. But yeah, so I
don't know, do broadcasters take vacation? Most people think we don't work, so.
That's true, yeah, but we like to think that we take vacation from the struggles and the strive of having to talk into a microphone all day. I got to get away from the grind, Colin. Take my shirt off in the grandstands.
Well, no offense to the hair and teeth of the world, but as far as I know, there's some expectations that I produce some information that is accurate and has continuity with other people's information. That is some expectation.
Exactly. What was your favorite moment of the day?
What was my favorite moment of the day?
Can I lead into this one? Because I have 2 options that are front of mind.
Are either of them a walk away in the bagger race, which I didn't expect?
Okay, so you know what? Now I have 3 moments, but yes, I will. I should have started this podcast by saying, if Hayden Gillam's just going to win all of the bagger stuff, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he is. No offense.
Yes. I like Hayden Gillam a lot.
I say that sarcastically because I know that's not how it's going to work, but I have said on this podcast before, because Hayden Gillam being a Honda guy in Superbike, I love when Hayden Gillum has success, and the reason is not because he's a Honda guy, and it's not because
big guy.
It can be because he's a big guy. It can be because he, when he does well, he's very personable. He's very down to earth. My favorite thing is that anytime sticks a microphone in front of Hayden Gillum's face, he acts like he didn't know it was going to happen. It's the funniest thing. Like, he wins the race. He's in victory lane, and they interview him. He's like, "Wow, don't know what to say. This is awesome." Like, he's just so happy and surprised by everything. But that was one of them.
As opposed to the king of the baggers who, was not a threat, and we didn't have as much controversy as usual. But, made a point of saying that his tires felt different to the point they felt different in the pit lane. As in, when he sat on the bike, the tires felt different.
He was like, when you're rolling out for your out lap, you can tell how different the tires are. I'm like, can you?
I think he was serious.
Okay. So that's one of my favorite things of the day was Hayden
They have
Gillum.
had tire problems here with those bikes, right?
But Hayden Gillum being in the, by the way, the clunkiest bagger shootout thing of all time happened this morning.
3 laps.
Well, 3 laps. Just kidding. It's 2. But but Kyle Wyman's out there. But Kyle Wyman's not. It might have been Troy Herfoss. I'm not sure. But it was like somebody's out there, somebody's not. They called the start of the race when the race wasn't actually starting. So now everyone in the stands is going, "Are they racing? Because this looks really slow. This looks like an F1 car going around at Melbourne."
People were pretty mixed up.
It was very strange. Anyway, so that happened, but then Hayden Gillum won that, and then he actually won race 1. So that was cool. My other 2 things I was actually going to mention. One was at the conclusion of the Twins Cup race here today, I don't know who it was, I couldn't tell, but some kid, some youth, decided to lay down on the top of his bike in between the International Horseshoe and Turn 4 and like literally ride it laying on his chest with his legs straight back. And I was like, that's crazy for obvious reasons, but it's one of those things where it's like people are coming past and doing wheelies and waving at the crowd, and everyone takes their hat off.
So you know what
and
the
waves.
inspiration for that is?
Yes, I've seen it, but I don't know what the proper term is
I don't know. I mean, if I think about it, I think the guy's name was Rolly something, and what it is it was a Triumph land speed record at Bonneville where he wore his swim trunks and lay out flat.
But did that inspire the Southeast Asian culture of people like drag racing doing that? Because I see those videos all the time. For some reason, Instagram thinks I'm super into just like street races of kids in the Philippines wearing T-shirts who could kill themselves if they crashed. That's a thing. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. So anybody out there who's on Instagram, you probably.
And I'm concerned if I Google it, I'm going to be getting all kinds of stuff I really don't want to know about.
Accurate. My actual favorite part of the day, aside from those 2 things, was the incredible game of cat and mouse in the second qualifying session today in Supersport. Mm-hmm. It was so much fun to watch. And honestly, the last time that I had this feeling during a morning session that doesn't mean a ton, they're just figuring stuff out and trying to lay down a time or work on the bike or whatever, was Ben Young and Alex Dumas at Grand Bend, because turn 1 at Grand Bend, there's that runoff area where you can just go straight through. And I remember Ben's leading the championship on his BMW at the time. I believe Alex was still on the Purple Skull Suzuki, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In 2023, I want to say it was. And ended up having basically, like, Alex would wait for Ben in that runoff area. Ben would go and do turn 1 and do the wide loop all the way back around like the carousel at Grand Bend. And then Alex would wait for him, jump in behind him, ride, pass him somewhere during the lap, pull back in and wait for him again. And do the same thing for like 5 laps in a row. I might be exaggerating. I think it was like 2 or 3 laps. But the reason I bring that up and what it reminded me of was Josh Herron, and we talked about it since we did the preview show back on Wednesday, him and Alessandro Di Mario, it has never been more clear to me that Di Mario is under Josh's wing than this morning. It was, hey, like Josh was like turning around and looking at him and being like, get the bleep up here. Let's go. Like, it's time to go. And then they were sitting back, and then they were riding together, and then they would switch because Josh would wave him past, and then he would ride with him in a different way, and then he would push, and he would show him how to use the people in front of him in the draft. And then Josh would get out in front, and what the most interesting part of this to me was, obviously it's cool that they're working together, and it's a young kid, and it's a guy who's going for 4 straight victories here in the 200. Darren Binder happened to be in the same region of the track at that time. Obviously, Josh's old team that we just talked about, the CSBK, Warhorse HSBK. Binder ends up in the same area code as them, and Josh starts playing all kinds of crazy games but he's also looping the kid in because he's like, hey, watch this. Like, if you want to see how we do this, how we play games with people. So what ended up happening, this is a terrible description of this, unless you're here and you saw it, but I'm going to try my best, is that Josh is doing all of this push, pull, hey, get up here, like basically bossing DeMario around. And DeMario's like, yeah, boss, wherever you want to go. I'm in. Like, just take me, show me how this is done. And Binder gets in there. And at one point, Josh is going from the infield up onto the banking, and he turns around to DeMario because Binder was behind them both, and he literally waves at him, and he's like, no. Lets Binder go past, and then Josh waves and latches onto Binder, full throttle going on the banking.
So let me interrupt. Binder's come from Moto 2 and Moto 3, right? This kind of nonsense is non-stop there, and people get in a lot of trouble for it.
For slowing down, sandbagging, getting in the way, being
and unfortunately, that's what Herron was doing, and it shouldn't be happening during a session where people are going flat out.
Slow on the racing line, all of those things. You're so right about that. But it was interesting to watch. So he latches onto him, and for about 2 laps, they just drafted off of Binder. They might have had the potential to pass him, but they didn't. And
at one point early in Time Attack, Binder and Josh were side by side for the whole front straight, and it was on the TV coverage, and there was nothing in it. And I'm thinking, boy, Ducati did a good job. Those bikes are both fast, and they're equally fast. Because I have a hunch those engines came in a box, happy Daytona.
Side by side, and so what happened is they do 2 laps together, and DeMario's in behind. He's watching Josh do this. They don't pass. They probably could have using the draft. And then it got to a point where Josh decided on the 3rd lap around, okay, we're going to pass him. So they did. Binder went as deep on the brakes as he possibly could, missed it, had to go through the runoff in the chicane, and so Herron goes through with DeMario, and they go,
It's a 2-stroke going by.
They go through a couple of different corners after that happens, and then when they get to the International Horseshoe, they take the long route, basically like slow to the outside, wait for Binder again, and do the same thing again. They were using Binder as a measuring stick testing, and it was funny because at some points it felt like Herron just wanted to go do his own thing, but I think they had an agreement going into the session that, hey, this morning, you follow me, let's work together and figure it out. So anyways, I thought that was super intriguing because Herron is absolutely going to be in the mix. DeMario is going to be hoping to latch on based on his pace to the lead group of 5 real strong names that we will talk about. And Binder is one of those names. And Binder must have just come in from that session and been like talking to his team and everybody. What the hell was that? And I know he's used to that kind of stuff, but
the flip
Herron
side
was targeting him.
I think there's some pretty good animosity from Herron, and Binder can't know that. He wasn't here last year, right? But he is essentially sitting in the seat formerly belonging to Josh, particularly at this race. Now, having said that, people speculated, and I got a little heat for this. I said, Ducati will make sure no matter what, Herron has a competitive bike, and people were saying they had problems and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And here they are, and you tell me, how did it look? Do you think Herron's in trouble for tomorrow? I don't.
No, and this was the thing, too. Throughout the last 48 hours, every time they've been on track, we talked about it yesterday, well, Herron's dealing with ribs and injuries from last year, and it's a new team, and it's this, and it's that. I don't think he was ever pushing, like really, truly pushing as hard as he possibly could over the last 2 days.
I don't think we see him push as hard as he can, except in the race when he knows this has value. And normally, it's like the second stint, so early after the first fuel stop, when somebody needs to set the pace, and he's a little faster than people want to go when he gets 25 seconds in the lead, and then he's got that going into the pit stop. Now, one year he ran out of fuel and screwed the whole thing up. He still won, but he made it much tighter than it needed to be. But his ability to manage this race, other people have done it, but not in a field that's this close in terms of lap time.
Knowing that we were going to get into like the 48, 47 range potentially.
Yeah, but we're almost a second off last year, and it's interesting because the weather's better, which tells you something, in my opinion, about tires.
Yes, absolutely. But we were going to get down there, and it was, what was it yesterday? I want to say it was like 151.2 was the fastest, I think. It was kind of like 151.2, 151.2, and then third place was like 151.5 or something like that. And it's been chipping away and slowly getting better and better and better. And the whole time, Josh hasn't really been a factor. And as I'm sitting out there watching on the infield, every time I see him go through, I'm thinking, he's just kind of accruing data and cruising around, and he's still really fast, even though he's not pushing as hard as he possibly can. So, that was interesting.
He probably gets to look at Jacobson's data, so he knows what was going on, because, I feel a little sorry for Jacobson because he's been setting the pace until time attack, right?
Yeah, and
that Scott did what he did. He can be a little grim about it, but we've seen a lot of that from Scott lately. And he's only 20, right? What an incredible performance around here. Yeah.
Wow, the number of times he's been in the top 5 already at 20 is
Pole last year, almost a second faster, and third in the race.
Future's pretty bright though, with guys like Blake Davis and like Ty Scott and.
Blake Davis is a good story. That's coming too, right?
Yeah.
Like he's sorted through a bunch of stuff. Unlike the poor Brits who has just been throwing gas on a fire. Yeah. It's been brutal.
Let's get to that in just a second, but just so that we can cover things off here and check it off the to-do list on this podcast. In terms of the times, it is Ty Scott for the D30 M4 X-Star Suzuki team, 149.134. He is 0.2 and 100th better than Darren Binder, who was second, PJ Jacobson third.
And no offense to everybody, Binder doing that's incredible.
Right, and so, sorry, this was qualifying 2 combined. So it was Ty Scott, Darren Binder,
So you haven't got to time attack
yet.
Yeah,
so PJ Jacobson, Richie Escalante, and then Alessandro Di Mario again in the Q2 session. He was 5th. And then we got to the time attack, and so it ends up being 148.9 is both Tyler Scott and PJ Jacobson, and this is one of those things too with Daytona where people go, "Wow, Ty Scott got the pole," and it's like a big deal, and it's like you're talking about like 400ths, right? It's like the difference around here of 400ths is draft or getting a little breeze that blows in your face and slows you down. It's not really.
And it's 3 pit stops and tire changes and fuel, and there isn't a race in the world where pole means less than this one.
Yes, and.
On the other hand, you go out and you hammer with the top people.
Right, but I think we are all in agreement, people that have watched this closely the last couple of days, that contenders to win this thing, it would have to be Ty Scott, PJ Jacobson, Josh Herron, Darren Binder, Richie Escalante. Outside chance after that, like outside looking in, is Alessandro Di Mario, Josh Hayes, which I'd love to talk about in a second, Kayla Yakov, Riston Grigg jumps up. We talked about him coming from Group B.
And in time attack, he looked like he belonged. Like that was a big step for a guy who I think was out hurt almost all of last season, right?
Yeah, Danny.
Like he is not a guy experienced on these bikes.
No, Danny Webb, Dominic Doyle, and then.
Well, and Webb crashed right at the end.
Yes.
So when you're traveling out of a crate from the UK. Your ability to respond. Now, he is on a Suzuki. There's a lot of Suzukis here, so he might be able to scramble up the parts he needs, but he's stuck it underneath the barrier, so that wasn't good. I felt bad for those guys because he's consistent. Yeah. He's a good runner. Maybe not quite as flamboyant as the Triumph guys, but solid, right?
Yep. So there's about 5 names here. Scott, Jacobson, Herron, Binder, Escalante that feel like, realistically, if we're talking tomorrow about, hey, they won the race, we're not shocked.
I want Yakov to get a good tire.
Yeah, if it's DeMario, Yakov, Grigg, or Hayes, like that's we're going, what the hell happened to the top 5 at that point? And it's, again, no slight to the names I just mentioned. It's just there is a hardened, established veteran understanding with good teams, with good support in that top 5 that we fully expect it's going to be between them tomorrow at this point.
Excuse me. And I think it's interesting too. Yamaha haven't been a big story yet, but if they have a good 200, that will be the story. And there are a couple of Yamahas that could do well, and they're so unknown, particularly in terms of how they're going to use their tire. That somebody told me the Yamaha's mileage, which would make sense, is just slightly better than the other bikes. So I mean, whether that makes enough of a difference, and of course, the new rules, which are not new rules at all, right. the adjustment is based on the fact the Yamaha's tank is smaller.
And going from 2 stops to 3 stops is what we're talking about there. So.
I mean, you can have as many stops as you want.
You want to stop 5 times? Go crazy, right?
Yeah, you can stop every lap.
Yeah. And so the thing that
I'd recommend you don't.
No, it's a bad idea. The thing I did find interesting with Josh Hayes being the top Yamaha, though, that was, I mean, I feel bad for Blake Davis based on the fact I thought he was going to be highly competitive coming in, but Josh doesn't seem to be fazed by the things that are frustrating the 22 camp, and to have Dominic Doyle being as fast as he has been consistently throughout this, that's encouraging, because Dominic Doyle was coming up from Twins, I believe, last year, correct? So to be here and to be that quick on the Yamaha, but like Matthew Skoltz going up to Superbike that we talked about, and then that Strack Racing team having Blake Davis and not having him not just be the top Yamaha as everyone expected, but not be in the top 2 Yamaha and not be in the time attack as well, because Q2 combined, it is Blake Davison 14th. And so that is that. Then they talked about it.
Which absolutely was a disappointment for him, right? That his reasonable goal is 10th or 11th, get into time attack.
Right. And
I think a little bit, and I don't mean this as a negative, there's some ego. I want those fast guys to see that I'm one of them, right?
Yep.
Because we're going to be drafting and looking for who we want to work with, and particularly after the first set of stops, if they're close together, it really does come down to who Herron is willing to work with, because we've seen that over and over again, that he establishes the precedent. And Ulrich's guys, all the Suzukis, right, have struggled to find each other when they needed to keep the pace. And that was where Ben Young, for instance, was relentless when he didn't have anyone to ride with and he could keep his pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The other part of this I wanted to touch on, because I do want to get to the Peter Hickman story, is, like, obviously we'll get to Dylan Bauer and talk about him, but who do you think, because I was, again, kind of sitting there in the stands and I'm going, okay, so you've got the Suzukis of Ty Scott and Richie Escalante being up there, right? And then you've got this, like, Ducati horde of bikes that are going to attack, and it's which of the Ducatis are going to work together and work well together, because it feels like one of them, whether it be, hey, DeMario, we like you, but it's your first time. It's not a big deal, man.
Herron will work with him.
No, but I'm saying he will work with him. But it's either going to be, it feels like, based on pace.
I think Herron partly wants to work with him just to annoy everybody else.
But
which, I mean, doesn't say good things, but...
Yeah. Sorry, I'm being clunky in this. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, of the 4, if you had to pick one of the Rahal Ducatis that's going to get left on the outside looking in?
The problem is, one of them is ridden by Josh Herron, right?
Yes.
So I'm, we see this over and over with racing. Somebody sucks all the oxygen out of the conversation, and nothing has changed. Whether I like Josh Herron or not is not the issue. Some people just get Daytona, and he is so good here. And every time I start wondering what if and maybe and someone else, I start thinking about how all these Saturdays at Daytona have looked and what he's been able to do, right? And he has won races he shouldn't win. And that's one thing for a sprint race. It's a whole different thing for 200 miles.
My thought process on this is I'm trying to imagine how the race unfolds. Maybe this is like an old quarterback thing where I'd be like, in the third quarter, if we're up by 10 or if we're down by 10, how is this going to look? And
if you're down by 10, get going.
Yeah, exactly. I need you on the sidelines in the Vanier Cup in 2014. That would have been a good thing to be reminded of.
To tell you to get going?
Hey, Marshall, get going. It's time, okay? You only got like 2 quarters left in your football career. Let's go. It's time. But I'm thinking about this Rahal Ducati team, and I'm imagining that as the race goes on, because we see how this thing unfolds, whether it be because of stops or because of pace or because of dancing partners or a mechanical, or that it's you kind of run with the same crowd for a while. First stop comes, and then everybody, after they cycle through those first stops, you kind of reassess how everybody came out from that first round of stops. And usually, and at times it's been Richie Escalante that's been the victim of this with Suzuki, where it's kind of like, man, Richie's really consistently fast. He looks really good today. And then you start looking around lap 20, 30, and you go, where did Richie go? Richie's running by himself.
Let me help you. Josh Herron took him out.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying is, okay, so I could see PJ getting left in the dust because Josh wants to hang out with DeMario more than anybody else. I could see Kayla getting left on the outside, and then maybe PJ jumping in to try and work with Kayla in a power dynamic, because it becomes, like, this is NBA Jam, NBA Hang Time, where you pick your team. Do you want to be riding with DeMario Herron, or do you want to be riding with Jacobson and Yakov? Like,
I know who as a racer, I think I would prefer to ride with, not Herron,
right,
because he's so unpredictable. I mean, and he's going to improvise, but the guy who's improvising is hard to follow through the hole, because he is going to time it when there's a gap to just he's going to make sure the door shuts just as he goes by. And I don't even think that's conscious. I think he's just that kind of racer, right? That's how he deals with challenges. So trying to ride with him, I have a hunch there's a squeeze coming up.
That's such a great point, because he would be unbelievable at the Max Verstappen like Spa hey, safety cars in this lap.
Remind me about how
swerving.
life goes for Max Verstappen's teammates.
Right.
It's a legendary situation in auto racing,
It's
right?
just like swerve.
I was going to have a career, and then I managed to get the second Red Bull seat, and that was the end of life as I knew it.
And what is our favorite little tidbit, speaking of Formula One, going into this weekend, is who has a penalty and why?
So Valtteri...
This made your weekend.
Well, it did make that makes it sound like I don't like Valtteri Bottas, and I do. He's fun. He's got a good sense of humor. But, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but... he hasn't raced in a couple of years, and he's dragging a penalty around from the last race of 3 years ago.
Feels cruel, but yeah.
Yeah, it does. And starting from the pit lane when you can't even remember, it's like, aha, remember that library book? We remember that you kept that book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So he has a penalty, and the penalty came from an incident that he had with
his new teammate, Perez.
His current teammate, Sergio Perez. And the reason I bring that up is because he was a Verstappen teammate, and that was a total disaster. But Heron would
be... It could be worse. You could be making HRC engines right now.
True, yes, true. But that would be...
Talking about Formula One.
Yes, that would be amazing to see Heron in a situation where he's just like weaving around and go time. He would just take off, and it's basically what he does, right? So I also, just as a side note here on the way out from all things Australia and four wheels, I don't know why any human being living in Australia that loves motorsport would pay money to go to Formula One this weekend based on what the footage looks like of everything on board and how the cars are losing 60 kilometers an hour on straightaways for energy saving purposes when V8 supercars is down the street. What are you doing? Go watch the supercars. That's a show. I don't know. I wouldn't go to F1 this weekend if I saw everything that was kind of coming down the pipe. It has a chance to be a very embarrassing weekend for Formula One.
On the other hand, unpredictable races are frequently interesting, and it looks like 3 of the teams are maybe okay.
Yeah.
But given there's 11 teams, that's pretty sad, right? That that as mighty a program as Aston Martin, Honda, and Adrian Newey are, couldn't put together something that's likely to finish the race is pretty remarkable.
Definitely. Okay, so we've touched on Binder. We talked, Escalante. Ty Scott gets the pole position here, which is irrelevant because once the race gets going, who knows?
It's not my elephant.
We've talked about Rahal Ducati and the dynamics of that team, which I find amazing. We touched on Josh Hayes.
Who have squeezed out the Suzuki team as now being the dominant benchmark at this event.
Let's get into Peter Hickman because he... it was in the second qualifying session when he just went basically like into turn 1 and
he didn't even really make it to when he tucked it probably when he first touched the brakes.
Was it just lean angle with on front brake? Like what happened
I don't
there?
think he was even leaning yet. It was really early.
Very strange.
And the worst part of that is the bike slid so far it wore a hole in the side of the engine, which, that can happen, particularly that's an awfully long way from a very high speed, right? Yeah. And so, it had to change a bunch of stuff, and the team scrambled, and the bike was ready, but I think he was struggling to clear medical. Like, they didn't make it for the start of Time Attack. He hadn't shown back up yet. He hadn't got out of the mandatory checks, right? Yeah. And they're chomping through bits and pieces. Their other rider was badly hurt yesterday. Yeah. And it's easy to forget how impressive Hickman was last year. It's his team, right?
Finished fourth.
Fourth, yeah. And it's so easy to miss that. And then, not that long after he was here, he got hurt at the Isle of Man, and they played down the injury, but he didn't race much after that. And his teammate Todd, who's now injured and had surgery, well, we can actually see it in the hospital from here. Todd was more the story of that group, right? But it's, in the world of the open roads, that's as superstar a team as you can imagine.
And just both strange incidents as well, right? Like
3, not just both.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So, and I actually just saw the Davey Todd footage of that this morning when they were kind of recapping what happened yesterday.
Okay. I didn't know there was footage.
It's wild. He goes violently left at a point where you should.
So now they're saying, because he was caught up in an incident with Josh Hayes right at the start of the very first session, like right away. And they're saying they missed something on the bike, and it's like I don't know this,
right.
Jammed a steering damper or something like that, right? Yeah. And I saw most of the crash, and it was colossal and very unusual for an experienced rider.
Yeah, it should not have happened. It's obvious that it was something that was not accounted for, unfortunately, which led to him breaking his leg, so he had surgery. But him going violently left and through the kink and losing it and crashing and getting majorly injured, yep, that's a weird one. that's all brought about by the incident with Josh Hayes, as you said in the start of that session. Then we go into this Q2, and it's like, again, people will see it on Moto America's social channels, but it's like Hickman's coming into turn one, and it's just like breaking, boom, gone. Like, it's just like the bike explodes out from underneath him.
Well, he's following somebody, and is this his first fast lap since he got back from the hospital? Right. I don't know what
I'm
the
saying
bike...
this is the first incident I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So we're still on the first one, which is crazy. It just, the bike explodes out from under him, essentially. All of a sudden, it goes vertical to horizontal, and as you say, explodes through the hay bales and the tires and the this and that.
Yeah, it must have slid a couple hundred meters.
And super fast, and it almost blew right through in a way that made me wonder, do they have enough hay bales there?
Well, it's not so much how many, it's enough room once you knock them all out that you don't wind up at turn 6, right?
Yes, yeah, so that was concerning.
And that has happened over the years.
And then the big one that does the most damage to the motorcycle, you could argue, aside from the engine casing, is Hickman's going. What did you see? Because you were up in the top in the media center, right? Going into turn one, was he like at a weird angle? And was that the normal line he was supposed to be going through there?
Yeah, and he was right with somebody going fast, which is not normally a problem. But I think we've seen some drama there. There was some oil there yesterday, I think. But to me, he just got a little bit more throttle, and what was scary is he reacted like he knew what he was doing. He put his weight in his feet. He's a fairly big guy. He rode races, right? He's used to muscling the bike around, and it's so confusing. This is road racing. He races on the open roads, right? Different technique. But he stood up and pushed, and when he got the back end to catch, it caught and jumped to the inside onto the grass, like right off the track. Yeah. So he pivoted the whole motorcycle almost like a kid riding an Ovale or something, right? And that, of course, just flicked him off the front. The good thing was it flicked him far enough that the bike didn't get him. Like he put his hand out like he saw the bike was right there coming, right? And the bike came down from a height. Well, he came down from a height too. Yeah. The first one was a long slide and probably destroyed a set of leathers, but that one's kind of one that you get hurt.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt for him because I watched as he walked away from the bike, just shaking his head.
Well, he owns the team, right?
Climbed over the tire wall. Disaster of a day. Disaster of a weekend. I was down there 15 minutes before we started recording this.
They're right over there,
looking down into their garage, and it's like everything they own is on the floor right now because they're obviously pulling it apart. And let's be honest, too, because of what happened to Davey and the fact they didn't catch it, they need to go through Peter's bike, every single piece that exists on it currently, to make sure that they're not going to send him out for morning warm-up tomorrow on race day, and he's going to get crashed and injured.
Well, and also, their bikes are pretty trick, and they're Triumphs. There aren't many Triumphs. There used to be. I think you could hear it in the commentary, the official voices around here. Everybody's worried that they just won't race, right? That they won't have enough left to build him something that works, which is a shame because he was a very solid fourth.
Yep, absolutely.
And for a big guy, he did a very good job.
Let's get into Dylan Bauer. Talk a little bit about the Canadian that is here. As it stands at the Q2 combined times before they went into the time
25th,
attack.
25th, something like that?
Yes, he's 29th for Goat Shop
so,
Racing.
And we should remember that last year he was 16th in the race. So, to me, that's what he's looking at. He's going about as fast as he went when he had Pirellis when it was an open tire race, as he's going with the Dunlops, which he's learning. So I don't think they're happy down there, but I don't think it's as bad as they think it is. And he was pretty savvy last year on a bike that wasn't working all that well. And in the end, if you remember, he didn't catch Trevor, but he was not far behind Trevor.
Yes.
And he and Alex Michel worked together for a while, which I think was good because the field got really spread out. There was no red flag, right?
Yeah.
But it's so much what happens early. If you can get your pace and get settled, which he managed a year ago, then that's half the battle, right? Starting to turn the kind of laps you can. So he's looking at probably racing in the 56s and 57s because probably the race pace is mostly 52s for the front runners.
Yeah.
So and that takes a little pressure off using the tire up. The other thing, too, is I think it's a pretty fast motorcycle. So when we get in big groups on the banking, it may go a little better than maybe they're thinking it is right now.
So strength will be drafting, banking, top speed?
Yeah, because last year it wasn't. It
right.
was, it was a new bike to him, and they just really didn't get a chance to tune it properly. But I believe this time it's tuned properly.
Okay. Well, something for people back
And
home.
also, there's almost no four-cylinder Yamahas left, right? It's an anomaly.
For people that are back home that are going to be watching the Daytona 200, maybe something to keep an eye on when they go to those wide shots of all the craziness and the hectic.
Well, he's easy to pick out 401.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know which one I love more.
So he's going to be in traffic. We know that.
Yeah, he's going to be stuck somewhere between Kitchener and Guelph, and he's pissed off. That's what he's going to be. No, I don't know what I love more: Hickey being 765 or Dylan being 401. They both feel right on the nose.
Yeah, but we all know why 765. Only a few people know why 401.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because somebody said to me, isn't there a highway up there with a number like that? I said, yeah, it's like a religion where I live, try getting away from it. Talk to anyone who's ever been to Shannonville, right?
Yeah, where you can see the 401 from the track.
Literally, you're on the back straight looking. Yeah, it's a truck. Yeah.
I had someone come up to me today as well that saw the case that we have for our podcast equipment, and he went, CSBK, huh? I went, yeah. And he goes, how's Torrin doing? I was like, he's not here. That's how he's doing. I was like, I hate that he's not here, but he's not. He goes, man, that guy's so good. And he's like, he tore it up there, didn't he, last year, right? So it's like people are aware. They follow along and they understand when we send talent out. But that would be nice if Dylan could get a top 20.
Torrin is flamboyant, and there's going to be people who catch on to that because he's going at it in a slightly different way, which is good. If we could just get more people down here to give him a little more respect for his effort, right?
Yep. That would be wonderful. Is there anything else that grabbed your attention today during your adventures, your travels?
Just really wondering if somebody can get organized, because sometimes this race comes apart and it breaks up into sections, and if there's a red flag, then it reorganizes everything and forces a whole different race. Because if you have a red flag late in the race, it turns into NASCAR, right? It's worrying about the big one, and it's also like trying to have enough laps that you don't finish as the caution comes out again, because red flags tend to beget red flags.
Yep.
So all the stuff that we like the first time we were really doing a lot of podcasting, we discussed a lot what are we going to do when the race stops, and then it hasn't stopped since then, right? It spoils some people's races and absolutely makes other people's races.
I wonder who will be the lucky one tomorrow, where the stops fall, how it all plays out.
Well, I think as much as Herron has won interrupted races, I think because of how he's managed them lately, he wants to go, right? He wants the whole thing. All he does is race, lap time all the time.
That could make the first 20 laps real interesting if Josh just decides, like, no, I'm not worrying about anything.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard not to get sucked into the first laps when they're so close together and people are working up and, you see some big changes in position. But it's really after the first set of stops, somebody who gets right down to it with a full load of fuel, with a fresh tire, and starts, probably not going quite as fast as the first shift, but close. And if other people are with him and try to figure out if they can do it, because you'll see that somebody go with the guy who's the guy, and discover in like 2 laps, I don't have enough comfort in this, right?
Yeah.
And Herron gets to that spot where you're like riding your dirt bike in your backyard, where you're just so in the zone, right? And you see it, like the guy rides Daytona like he owns the place.
Yeah.
Can, not always, but frequently. What's the math? Like, you can bet on these races, right? What's the math on winning Daytona 4 times in a row?
Yeah, the odds on that. And
it just seems impossible. Something happens, right?
I did hear Jason Pridmore say on the broadcast today, because I guess they had pulled up some like live odds or whatever for betting.
That's what they did right at the start.
And he said pretty good value right there on Darren Binder. And I was like, do the odds books have Bender as like a deep underdog? I'm like, he's been top 3 in every session. Like, what are we doing with that?
Well, no experience, right? No series.
But I feel like that
doesn't know the track, doesn't know the series, doesn't know the bike. I mean, that's one. If I were betting, and I don't, I have bet on one motorcycle race, and it was a Grand Prix 30 years ago because a friend of mine was in it, and I actually broke even. It was like I had to have it explained how to do it, and it was like a win, place, or show bet that I had because my guy wasn't like, it's Miguel Duhamel, right? Yep. But I went up and the guy explained how to do it, and it was pretty expensive. But anyway, I bet and I got my money back.
I struggle with this sometimes in sports media. What is reality and what is narrative? Because all of the things.
Well, when you're betting, that's a really good question.
But when you are saying, as I'm literally looking at a Hard Rock Bet, the fastest way to bet on sports, sign that's right in front of us here, I agree that everything you said about Binder is legitimate. They are facts. Also, the fact is he's been top 3 in every session, so why on earth would he be some sort of underdog? If he wins this and we're sitting here tomorrow...
We're not surprised.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, why is there value in picking him? Like, obviously, Heron should be one of the favorites. I'm interested to just see if Ty Scott can get over the hump.
Who's to say, and I don't know Binder very well. I know his brother a little bit.
Also, where is his pit?
It's over on that side.
Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't seen him at all this weekend.
But can you imagine that privately he's sitting in his hotel room going, I got pushed back here with this bunch of chuckleheads at the Daytona 200, right? What I need to do is just hammer these guys like there's no tomorrow, right? Just humiliate them, embarrass them, put them down, and prove that I'm in the wrong place, right? And if he's secretly saying that to himself, I wouldn't blame him, right? Like it's a punch in the gut what's happened to him. Like I don't know him, but I feel bad for him. You know, it's a big setback. I mean, that's what European racing's like. It's brutal, and you are very much judged the last time you rode the motorcycle. And to be fair, other people in this paddock have been through that too in Europe, right? Including the guy who's trying to win yet another one of these races.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on the way out here that I laughed when you said red flags beget red flags, because I remember a time, to bring this full circle on Dylan Bauer, where I was driving on the 401 and I had Waze open and I looked down. I'm like, why am I what's going on here? Somewhere around Mississauga Road or something. Both lanes are completely backed up, and I opened Waze to see how bad it was going to be. And it's like, hey, there's a crash in 200 meters and another one in 600 meters and another one in 1.2 kilometers. And another one in 8 kilometers. And so it was like an hour to get from a place that should take 12 minutes to get towards like Lakeshore, Exhibition and BMO Field and all that good stuff. And I remember screenshotting it and sending it to one of my friends. I just said, red flags breed red flags. You got all these people on the 401 twisting their neck to look at crashes, causing crashes. So hopefully Dylan Bauer stays clean tomorrow and brings the 401 bike home and has success. Top 20, that's the hope?
Yeah. No, I think it's realistic. We'll see.
Okay.
But we'll see early, because he needs to make his way up a bit and get with slightly faster people. And as funny as this sounds, it'll cheer him up if my grand ambition is what plays out, then he'll be in a better mood, which will help with how the rest of the race goes.
And
because he kept digging last time with not a lot of good news.
And the first stint, if he's latching on to the quicker people and doing well on the banking, that's just going to create momentum. That's the hope, right? Is that as the race goes into those, from the very first 3, I survived the first 5 laps, to
think about it.
To 15.
They built some bikes. His whole family's here. A huge amount of effort and time and resources and everything went into it. Why? It has no context for what he normally does, because he came down here last year and he liked it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's hopefully he, whatever happened in his head and with his endorphins and everything last year, he triggers it again, right?
It's like, I need it.
Yeah.
I need it. I'm back. All right, that's going to do it for the podcast. Thanks to everybody for listening. Sorry I didn't get any guests today, but everybody was all preoccupied with doing the pit stop.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces today. So we're looking forward to a great race tomorrow, and we will keep you updated again on social media. Instagram, it is at Canadian Superbike Podcast.
And the race starts at 1:10. It's early.
1:10? Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Because I did see that the 2-up rides with Chris Ulrich, which I've been thoroughly enjoying because it gives me nostalgia for the time I did it. Which, by the way, just on the way out here, one of my favorite things was basically Ben Young running his own program and getting ready to race with Bridgestone back in 23, and somebody said to him, hey, Marsh's going to go on the track. And he's like, what do you mean? And Ben looked at me, and I was like, yeah, like I'm doing the 2-up thing at lunch. And he just laughed and then said, you're going to shit your pants.
Well, I think in the world of racing, the uninitiated heading out up the banking the first time is we all have a notion of how that goes.
I had irrational trust in Chris Ulrich, considering that I had never met him before at that point.
Well, what was funny is, Chris is a regular-sized person. You're pretty tall. So as much as they often talk about big people on the back, you were definitely a big person on the back of a GSXR.
I didn't think I was big until I still have all of the pictures that you took of me doing that. And when I look back at the pictures, I'm like, I look like I'm Michael Jordan in leathers. It's uncomfortably tall, which is funny, because even when I went to do fast riding school at Shannonville, there were at least half a dozen to a dozen men who were in just my entry level, who were taller than me or thicker than me and all the rest. I'm like, are we just monsters? Like Canadian guys riding motorcycles? But anyways.
Well, it's good. It's good you get the chance because, of course, racers are mostly little people,
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for us. It's we're copying Oxley Bomb by saying we're done and then not actually being done and then talking for 20 more minutes. So we'll try not to do that. But it's going to be a great race tomorrow.
I'm sorry, are they a podcast?
Oxley Bomb Podcast. Go listen to them. They're wonderful. Personal friends of Colin's. There you go. We'll talk to you on race day tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody.